Have you figured out your niche? Are you helping adding value to other people's lives? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to Munira's Musings with your host, co-author of Conversations with Top Real Estate Investors Volume 3, Munira Zahabi.
Greetings, Chicagoland. This is Munira from Munira's Musings. How are you? Thank you. And welcome to another episode of Munira's Musings. My guest today is a change expert. And I'm guessing all of those people that are out there looking at changing the way your business trajectory is going to go. This is an awesome opportunity for you to learn from Drew Stevens. Hi, Drew. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Thank you. So before we jump in, let's talk about who I am and what Munira's Musing is about. So I am Munira Zahabi. I live in Chicago. I'm the niche navigator, and I help coaches and business entrepreneurs find their niche. It is so important to have a niche because that is the cornerstone of your foundation. It helps you build from there up, because you don't want to build a business and then come back and say, I don't have a niche. You can grow into different niches after you start the first one. But enough said, Munira Musings is a show that came about after I saw several thousands of people doing awesome things. And, they're changing people's lives with what their niche is. And started out with one conversation. I had an interview with this person who didn't think she was impacting the world as much as she was. And the rest is history. We are now into our 190th episode. And I am very glad and happy to say that we'll keep going. My dream eventually is to get Steve Harvey on my show, the big man up there. But, all I can say is I can put it out there in the universe. So enough about me. Let's jump into the change expert. Drew, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, certainly. And again, thank you for having me. With you, being in Chicago, I'm just south of you, about 270 miles in St. Louis, Missouri. I have 35 years of business experience. That business experience really parallels three very distinctive paths. Path number one is I've always worked for small to mid-sized businesses. I've always thought about the opportunity that it's just easier to migrate in a smaller pool than a much larger one. And so it's been very, very helpful for me in terms of my business career. I've been in the sales and marketing world since 1985, and then I've escalated into sales management and then ultimately into senior management of those small to mid-tier firms as chief operating officer and chief executive officer. Secondly, the firms that I've worked in really share a very similar space. I'm very involved in information technology, both from the firms that have employed me on a full-time basis, and then I've done a lot of consulting work in that information technology space. At one particular point, a very particular niche I was involved with was known as market data, is now known as fintech. And so those organizations from a information technology perspective are those that I help on a consultative basis. And the last is that I have worked with every single organization in 1985 to help them exit. I have worked with a myriad of both private equity and venture capital firms to help acquire those firms, give them the success tips that they need to jettison the revenue, and then actually get the owners to exit gracefully with a lot of money, as it were. So that's a little bit about my background and my business.
Wow, that's a lot of experience you bring to the table. What is it that you do now?
Essentially what I do now is I am a chief operating officer and an advisor to small to mid-tier businesses. And I work with a rather small company in the world of private equity. And essentially what we do is really two things. Number one is we help the small business owner, middle tier business owner, And when I say middle tier, let me define that. These are either family-owned businesses or small entrepreneurial offices, anywhere between approximately 2 to 5 million on the smallest end, roughly between 30 and about $80 million at the highest end, from a myriad of industries. And what tends to happen in a lot of these businesses, they hit a cap. They've just reached a ceiling where the owner operator is not able to scale the business. And so what we do is we come in, we offer the advisory services, the turnaround expertise, provide some revenue operationalization. And where we can then turn the business around, sometimes we'll take equity in that business, put lenders together if possible, and if needed, and we then actually take over the organization and then help the organization exit within a 3 to 5 year time frame, sometimes a little bit longer. And at that point, we get the return on investment from the initial investment. So an example of that is a small family-owned business that we're working with that has been in the family for 24 years. They've reached a cap of $30 million. We see the opportunity to come in and turn the business around. And we are now taking over the business, and our exit strategy is to take it from the 30 million that they're at today and exit out at $150 million in about 5 years' time.
So these are people who don't want to do business anymore and they just want out?
Not necessarily out. Some do. Some have that plan that they just want to leave, but others have just gotten to the point where they have reached a cap and they just can't seem to bust through that ceiling. And sometimes it's just their manner of thinking. It could be the business model that they have. I look at it from three very simple perspectives. Quite honestly, Munira, it's about people, putting the right people in the right seat, having the right processes. Number two, having the right processes and procedures in order to jettison that revenue. And last but not least, it's then data. What is the data that you're looking at to then help you institute the change that you need?
Wow. Wow. Those three principles can be applied to any business, right?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
So do you, so you have a firm and you work with a firm and you do this, all these things to different things. Do you coach or do you help people? I mean, it seems like you have a very, focused, it's not flip-flopping. It's, this is what I do. This is what I can help you do.
Right.
And let's get you out of whatever issues you're having. And,
correct.
And that's a good to see. So when you talk about changes, right? What is your typical change that, what is most people not doing that you think they should be doing?
When you look at something such as change, change is individual, change is organizational, change is team-oriented, and really when you break through all of the issues related to change, it's really about formations of habit. And people get into habits, and even with habit, I could break it down even more so, it really gets down to comfort. Each and every day, each one of us is forced in some way, shape, or form to change. At this particular point in time, we're suffering from a crisis in the United States government where the government is shut down. So air travelers are seeing less TSA agents, less air traffic controllers, and as such, there's longer lines at the airport. That's changed because typically the business traveler who wants to get through the airport hastily can't do that anymore because there's less people to do that. And so our comfort level then is diminished simply because we're used to one thing and somebody has taken something away. In another, with businesses, we're adjusted to do business with certain customers. We have certain processes, we have certain procedures. Competition, the industry, economics, politics, technology, socio-demographic issues, everything. And typically I'm saying the word everything, and that's way too much, but there are about 7 things known as uncontrollable environmental factors that create change in business every day. And that creates discomfort, and that discomfort then changes our habits. And because we change our habits, that's when people tend to get agitated about accepting change, because it's different from what the quote unquote norm is daily.
Change is difficult.
Yes.
The change is difficult. It's like that in our personal life as well as our business life, right?
Absolutely.
And as I used to work in corporate America, and every time there was a change, it was like, oh man,
Right. Exactly.
So how do business owners adapt to change? I mean, do they do it well, or are they just, is it a...
There's a statistic that says 78% of most business owners don't, and that's a big number. And it's a big number because 98% of the businesses in America are small business. So you will tend to see this from time to time. The problem is that, the way that I see this, and it's an interesting juxtaposition, because you've got very smart people to a certain extent building businesses on a daily basis. It doesn't matter if they're doing that from a cocktail napkin or they're acquiring a franchise, as a good example. The issue then becomes, how well are they able to adapt to industry and competitive changes, technological changes, political changes, economic changes, socio-demographic that I mentioned before, natural resources, seasonal changes. As a business owner, it is vital that you understand the need for change. It's also vital that you understand how imperative it is to undertake risk. You don't go into business and don't think that you don't have any risk. That is a silly thing to state. When you go into business, you have to take risks, calculated risks, sure. But you need to understand how to do that, because you will need to change daily to meet some of the issues that are going to come up, whether they're customer issues, quality of product and service issues, and just the general operating environment. Change is required in every single business. And let me just tack on to one more thing about that, Munira, and that's simply this. I was having a conversation with a partner that I have from the business that I'm doing. And we were talking about this last night. And I think this will help the listeners to your show. And that is simply this. When we talk about risk, what we're really looking at is, what have you learned from some of the issues in the past, some of those failings, some of those trappings? And how have you then used those to alternate course and make it better for yourself? It's rather simplistic to sit there and say, you've got an accomplishment here, you've got an accomplishment there. But when we're talking about something as strategic and something as necessary as change, you want to take a look at, where have you failed in the past? And where do those failings help you to create the change needed so that your business can be opportunistic for things that you're looking for that business to do moving forward?
You bring a very good point, because we are taught not to fail.
Absolutely.
Not fail. And that is a taboo that we live with. And most people don't reach out because they fear the fail, right?
Right.
As a niche navigator, I look forward and I see so many people who don't start a business because they just don't know if it's going to work or not. Well, if you
Right.
don't know, if you don't start it, you're never going to know.
Absolutely.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I want to ask you is, have you found, because I'm the niche navigator, have you found in your line of business that people who are doing the business are in the wrong line, and they didn't think about their niche and just went into business just because?
I find two things, and I'll as I do this, I'll give you my learnings from them as well. Absolutely, I do believe that when people are starting businesses, that part of the rationale why people make some mistakes, and I see this every single day with the business that we do. Number one, that many business owners don't understand the core demographic. They don't do any research, market research, to truly understand how their product or service is then going to migrate into a specific demographic. I think it's great when people say, I'm going to start a business. But the first thing that you need to understand is, who are you going to service? How are you going to service them, even if it's a product? And third, what is the differentiation that you have amongst the competition in the field? And a failure to look and research, though, that niche is problematic and emblematic of why there were so many businesses that fail. If you go up and down any county road, it doesn't matter if it's Chicago, whether it's Schaumburg or Oak Brook or even Chicago proper, you will see businesses that have closed over the years. Why? Because somebody had a lot of cash, bought a franchise or started anything, it doesn't matter what it is, and never actually researched it correctly. And it is absolutely essential that you need to know your niche. Number two, outside of the niche, is that many entrepreneurs, or even small businesses for that matter, fail simply because they try to be Genghis Khan. In other words, they think that they're going to rule the world. They play David as if it's David fighting Goliath. And one of the things that many people, both that are listening to this and others that, if you're not listening to this show, truly need to understand, you need to, as a proprietor, you need to learn to delegate. A failure to delegate is a failure to run the business. You can't be the chief cook, bottle washer, and sales and marketer and everything else. You need to learn to let go. I truly understand it's your baby. It's where you started. It's what your investment is in. But I've got to tell you, the failure to let go is outside of the understanding of the niche are the reasons why many businesses fail on a daily basis.
You bring up so many good points. You know, I'm in the process of starting my business, and I've been, I'm very new at this, and I'm learning. But that's one of the big things that we are taught. Find your niche and learn to let go, because delegate. You said it. It's an awesome advice. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Given us lots of good nuggets already, but I'm going to ask you to share two things that you leave with our viewers with, because I know that there are lots of people, my followers are lots of business entrepreneurs and a lot of coaches out there who are still starting their business or have started their business and are still growing. What can they avoid? What can they avoid to, have to close down, give us some safety tips, if you will.
Not even safety tips, but as I look at that question, there's a couple of things that I would suggest. Number one, start every single day with goals. Write your goals down, commit them to memory, and don't do any more than 3 or 4 goals. People have these lengthy lists of goals, and I think it becomes too audacious. Just do a couple of things so that you can achieve more every single day. Number two is make a priority list of no more than 3 things that need to be accomplished on a day-by-day basis. And once you reach those 3 things, you feel so accomplished, having moved the ball forward, as it were. So, my attitude is write your goals down and priority. Number 3, if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to find another room. Which means that people that are your advisors that are not able to push you forward and give you sage advice, you need to find a different group of individuals that could push you. Munira, I know there's many people out there, probably those that are in your customer base, that have people that are in the International Coach Federation or are with Vistage or are with this particular Chamber of Commerce group. And I got to tell you, if you're in a group of people and you find yourself in that group and they're all complaining about the same thing, the same business issues, the same trappings, the failure to meet goals and expectations, you need to find a different group, because that's where I learned that my business is going to jettison. You need to be in a smarter group of people. To that end, number 4, I am a firm believer that God did not put anybody on this earth to fail. And that when you surround yourself with individuals that want you to quit, when you find yourself with individuals that are not supportive of you, which includes immediate family members, you need to find a different group of people. Running a business requires support. Running a business is a very large, audacious task. And when you're with negative influencers, you need to figure out how to get rid of them or at least put them to the side, because you need to be with a good supportive group of individuals. I am not a big believer of self-help books. I'm not a big believer of self-improvement books. I'm not a big believer of some of these books that are out there, The Secret and the this and the that, only because where it's going to take is number 5. You have got to create as an entrepreneur, as a founding member, if you're with other people, self-esteem. You've got to create confidence. You've got to have conviction, and you've got to have passion with everything that you do, which is why you have to surround yourself with good people. When you can look in the mirror and you can sell your business on yourself, when you can look in the mirror and you feel that you're unstoppable, then at that particular point, you're going to be a very wonderful self-made entrepreneur. But by remaining in the trappings of people obstacles, remaining in the trappings of outside influences, you will never move forward. And there's a big difference between those that many see out there that are, very successful entrepreneurs and those that aren't. And what's done that is that self-awareness, that self-confidence. And then last thing I want to mention, because I think it's very important, especially for a group like yours. When you're running a business, stop focusing on wealth. Stop it. Because I got to tell you, it doesn't matter if you're a millionaire or a billionaire. It doesn't matter if you're making $50,000 a year or $80,000 a year. But you need to be comfortable in your own skin. And wealth is a matter of discretionary time. And there are so many people that put their livestock within their business, and they're working 80, 90 hours a week. And you see this look of despair amongst them because they don't seem to be getting ahead. If you're not spending more time with your loved one, if you're not spending time with your children or your friends, you're not relaxing, then you're truly not an entrepreneur. You're a wantrepreneur. Stop looking at the checkbook. Think about creating value, and then value will create wealth on the back end. But don't worry about it on the front end. It's the easiest thing you can do. So those are my 5 levels of expertise for your viewers.
There you go. Thank you so much. Those are golden nuggets, man. These are things that everybody should have on their, wall every day to say, negativity. You talk about that. It's very, very important. I'm going to add to it because it's then your self-talk with yourself, because I have learned that when I talk to people, and I was there myself, it's your affirmation, right? If you have negative affirmations, you are going to bring yourself down.
Absolutely.
But if you have positive affirmations, you have to start with you. So it's your mindset. If you keep saying fail every day, then that's not going to work, because you are bringing yourself down. So just these 6 positive things that are so nice and so valuable. So let me just recap. I was writing notes as you're speaking. Write your goals down. Do not have too many. Just write a few down and make sure you accomplish them. These are goals for every day. Prioritize them. And then leave the room if you are the smartest person in the room. And you are not here to fail, and God didn't put you here to fail, but you have to have support. So make sure that you are getting rid of the people that support you. And then work on your self-confidence and self-esteem, because that's where you're going to go. Don't think about your wealth, but focus on value.
Correct.
That's amazing. And I'm going to add, the mindset piece, because it all starts with you. So you have a chatter. We all have it. And that it's usually your own self-sabotaging voice that's going to say, don't do this. It's not a good idea. What if? Well, just try to silence it. Put a mute button on it. Because as you grow, and I've seen that, when people grow and they find the niche they are in, it's not work. It's more like a hobby. They have to put in the work. It's not self-automated, but you have to put in the work, but it's not going to feel like a job. It's going to feel more like a hobby. And don't do something that doesn't make you smile, right?
Right, exactly.
I used to manage a lot of people in my corporate world. And I used to have people who would come to work and when you say something about like good morning and they look at you and say, what's good about it? And I had the authority to say, please go home. And when you have a change of attitude, please come back. We worked in a pharmacy and, that required a lot of concentration, especially in a hospital pharmacy because you're making a lot of IVs and stuff.
Right.
So you cannot make a mistake. With that mindset, I understand everybody has problems. We all do. Either leave them in your car, or don't show up at all. Because we don't need that negativity. That one person creates a lot of, and negativity is like a domino effect. It just spreads so fast, right?
Very true.
So it's out there, ladies and gentlemen. If you're watching this, I'd really appreciate it. Here's a guy who's worked his life in corporate. He's sharing such a wonderful tip. But these tips are not only applicable to the small and mid businesses that he's working with. If you're starting out, you need these tips. If you start out with what he's teaching you, it's going to change the trajectory of your business because you know what? Your business is going to grow exponentially. That's all I can say. Thank you again, Drew. Thank you so much for being on my show. I appreciate it. I'm honored and humbled. For those of you who are watching, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We're going to leave this, we're going to share a link on YouTube as well. And Drew is going to share a way to contact him. But if you can tell us, how can can they contact you? That's the first question.
Absolutely. Several ways to contact me. Let me start with what you were saying on social media. I do have a social media channel on YouTube, which is Drew Stevens, PhD. I can be found on LinkedIn and just do linkedin.com/Drew Stevens. The same thing holds true for Facebook. If you look at Facebook, just add the PhD at the end of that. I do have a doctorate in leadership and management. And then I also have my own website, and I'll give you that, which is www.drew-stevens.com. Stevens is with a V. And you're free to email me. And my email address is drew-stevens.com. And there you'll see all of the services that I provide. I'm a speaker. I've gotten 14 books that I've written over the course of the last 15, 20 years. And in addition to the consulting and advisory services I provide.
You are very accomplished. Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Stevens.
You. Thank you very much.
But go ahead and contact him because what he's teaching us is going to work for your business too. If you're starting out or you've been in business less than 5 years, you still need what he's teaching you. You don't want to start changing your stuff as you grow older. Do it now so that you're positive and outlook's awesome. Thank you again. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Munira's Musings with your host, Munira Zahabi. If you enjoyed our show, please share and subscribe to this channel. And for more content, please join our Facebook group called Navigate to Your Niche.